Well, you are in the right place if you've got some questions to be answered. I've got several of them that people have asked recently that I'm going to get to, and I'm going to try to answer them the best I can. This is kind of a new format for me, so be patient, and we're going to get after it. In fact, get started right away. Most of them are questions. Some of them are just comments that were worthy of making it to this episode. So let me bring up the first question, and we'll go from there. If you could only plant 5 items from seed directly into a fall garden, what is it and when to plant? When to plant depends on where you are, of course. Whether or not you can even plant a fall garden depends on how far north you are. But I'm assuming if you're asking about it that you can plant some things. Corn is good. You need to plant probably now in August. I would think squash, things like that, your squash, cucumbers. I don't know, the germination temperature of squash and zucchini and things like that is about 80. So we're going to have trouble getting that to germinate, maybe, down here in the south, because that soil temperature is going to be, gosh, I bet it's 90, 95 degrees. So that may or may not germinate. But what you need to do is look at the plant you're thinking about or that you want to plant. See how many days it is to harvest. And if it's 100 days to harvest, then you backtrack 100 days from your very first frost in October or November, whenever your first frost is. Backtrack 100 days, count back, and that's when you need to plant. So you can harvest at that point and even beyond. Maybe add 2 or 3 weeks to that so you can have a harvest for several weeks. I've got a bunch of peas out there that we're picking right now, and next year I am planting peas in August. Great time to plant peas. I learned that from Mr. Hoss, Daddy Hoss. Great time to plant peas, and we won't be picking peas when it's 100 degrees outside. So I'm really looking forward to that. So something you need to think about, just count back whatever the variety you choose, and I don't know what you like to grow, but whatever variety you choose, count back whatever days to harvest that seed says, and you'll need to plant accordingly to be able to get it to fruition before harvest. Corn is a little bit special in that corn needs heat to really mature, and corn will mature a little faster in the summertime. If you plant it in August or July, it'll mature a little faster because it matures faster when it's real hot outside. So keep that in mind, but also keep in mind that it's going to have some heat to mature, for those ears to mature. And so you may want to plant a little earlier. It may be a little late right now, right in the middle of August to plant corn, but there's plenty of things you can plant. Just figure out what you would really like to grow, other than the brassicas and things like that you want to grow in the fall. Spinach, broccoli, cauliflower, things like that. Those are fall crops. But I'm just talking about something that most people would traditionally think of as a spring summer crop, can be grown in the fall. And sometimes a fall garden is one of the best gardens you'll ever grow. You got to water it. You got to make sure you put some water on it, though. It's not going to make it. All right, next question. Alan, I love your channel and have gained a lot of knowledge from you. Thanks for that. Happy to do that always. One helpful suggestion would be that they would recommend is that if possible, could I give the dates of when I'm making the video? It would help the followers determine if we are doing something right or wrong, and what season we're in. And I get that. Even when we're watching years after your video was made. Thanks again. Happy growing. Sometimes I mention that. Sometimes I'll say, if you're watching this in the spring, I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to you, in the fall or something like that. Like propagating. Propagating has not been successful for me in the summertime. So I like to propagate in the fall and winter. And if I do a propagation video in the winter and you're watching it in summertime, I'm not talking to you. And I usually say that when I'm talking about propagation, I usually will say that in the video, that summer is not in Texas or in the South. Summer is just not a good time to propagate most things. Unless you've got a propagation house, a little shade house, or you're misting, you're doing all the right things. I don't have that anymore. Kind of discarded all that because I'm not doing a lot of propagating anymore. As far as the rest of the videos, how to know when the video was made, mine or anybody else's, is look underneath the video where it says more or show more. I think it used to say show more. Now it just says more. Click on that and it will give you the date that the video was uploaded. Now, for me, that is within days of when I shot the video. May or may not be, but it's a very short time that I will, that I'll shoot the video and upload it. Very short amount of time there. So look at when the video was uploaded, and that pretty much, as far as I'm concerned, as far as my channel, will tell you when the video was shot. Next question. This is from Carol Bear 24. I'm looking forward to getting some questions answered, as most don't want to do that. Some answers are simple, some are hard. Some need to be answered like Dummy 101. I'm still a bit confused on when to prune blackberries and how much do you prune. So much depends on what kind of blackberries you're growing. Are they primocane? Are they floricane? That they prune differently. Now, some things are common to both of them, and that's when they produce the fruit and the canes die. And I mean, don't just look bad. I mean, they die. Obvious that cane is dead. Then you can go down to the bottom, maybe an inch or two from the soil, prune that cane completely out, take it out. It's best to discard that. Throw it in a burn pile or something like that. You don't typically want to leave it laying around, because if that cane if it's a spent cane, it's already produced fruit, it's one thing, but it could be a diseased cane also. And you don't want to just cut it and leave it next to your blackberries. And I am preaching to myself there, because sometimes I will absolutely do that. But best practice is to take it somewhere away from the blackberries, just in case it is disease. But if it's completely gone, completely dead, and you know it's dead, and it's pretty obvious when they're dead, then prune that out. And that you do that with primocane as well as floricane blackberries. Now, as far as the difference between the two and pruning the two out, all of them I will pinch when they get just a few inches above my trellis, 4, 5, 6 inches. I'll try to pinch that top off. I try to get it early enough to where it is easy to pinch off and don't have to use the clippers on it. But you can, pruners. But I'll try to prune it off there, and that encourages that lateral growth. And that lateral growth is where you're going to get most of your blackberries. So keep that in mind. So if you have a trellis, just let it get above the trellis wire, the top trellis wire, and then pinch it off there. Encourage those laterals. Use a tape tying tool if you need to. I love those things. And have it tie that cane to the top wire. You can tie it to the bottom wire too as it grows, and then as it gets to the top wire, tie it to the top wire. Use some twine if you want to. Use several things. I just love the tape tying tool because it's so fast. I've got several videos on that. If it's a primocane, I let those laterals grow 16, 18 inches. And if I see they're not going to bloom, if it's getting real hot, because they don't bloom when it's real hot, 95 or so, they just stop blooming. Your blackberries aren't going to bloom anymore, which means you're not going to get any more blackberries until it starts cooling off. If it's a primocane, until it starts cooling off in September, October, whatever, then you probably start getting some blooms, and early enough before the freeze to make some blackberries. So I would prune a primocane. Prune the top, let the laterals grow. If they don't look like if they're getting 2-3 feet along, then go ahead and prune them back. They will make laterals on the laterals, and that's a good way to make blackberries there. Laterals make laterals, and laterals make blackberries. If it's a floricane variety, which means it does not produce on the first year cane. That cane comes up in the spring, and it just sits there and grows and looks pretty all summer long, but never produces any blackberries. That's probably going to be a floricane, which is the older varieties, is a floricane. That's going to be a floricane, and it's going to need to be pruned same way. Pinch it at the top of the trellis, and then pinch those laterals. I wouldn't worry about them fruiting, because they're not going to. It's a primocane, and a floricane will not produce fruit on a primocane cane, first year cane. So just when those laterals go out 16, 18 inches, cut those and let those produce more laterals. You're going to wind up looking almost real bushy because it's got laterals on top of laterals. And that's the best way for me to do a floricane blackberry. Primocanes, I've noticed that in early summer, before it starts getting too hot, those laterals will come out there and start to bloom. Maybe 4, 5, 10 blooms on the end of a lateral, and get you some big, big berries that are from the laterals. And then, of course, those berries are going to die off. You're going to pick them, and then just leave them, and they will probably produce you some berries next year also. So, if you have a primocane variety, leave the primocanes alone. Prune them like I just said. Leave them alone all winter. Unless you live up north, you may want to cut down to the ground because they may not make it through a harsh, harsh winter anyway. And I've been in discussion with somebody here about that too. I lost a bunch of canes in 2021 when it got real, real cold, and lost a bunch of the canes on my primocanes. My other blackberries that weren't primocane didn't bother them a bit. So keep that in mind. If you're up north, then you may want to cut all your blackberries down at the end of the season, and just lose your summer crop or your ever-bearing crop if it's a primocane. If it's a floricane, it's probably going to be cold tolerant enough to stand the winter. So hope that helps you. Hope that answers your question for you. Next question. Need good information on cane blight. They bought Stark Brothers Black Gem. I'm not familiar with that. I've heard of it. Nice blooming crop, and as soon as the berries formed, the cane was dying. But my other blackberries, Osage Sweetie Pie Travelers, didn't have that problem. They're on another trellis system. He's assuming it's cane blight. It may or may not be that. I don't know. I haven't had a lot of experience with cane blight. I know I've seen it before. I've done some research on it, but I just don't know all that much about it. It depends on whether you used a fungicide, and if you did all the things right as far as spraying for fungus and stuff, and still had that. It could just be a water issue. It could be there are cane borers that bore into the cane, kind of like a vine borer will bore into a squash plant. I've just never had that problem, so it's hard for me to answer that problem for you. If your other blackberries are doing well, and the black gem, I don't know enough about it. I don't know if it's a primocane or a floricane, but the black gem is doing well, but the others aren't. I just don't know. It could be a trait of that variety. And I wish I could help you a little bit better on that. Experiment next year. Make sure you do a great fungus program on it with some copper, liquid copper, something like that, and just spray early, spray in the off season, spray when they're dormant, and also spray before they start blooming, and then after they bloom, when they still got berries but not ready to eat yet, you may want to even spray then. You don't want to spray while they're in bloom. It might harm the bees, but otherwise, use something with some kind of fungicide. I like liquid cop, but some type of fungicide that will prevent what you believe to be cane blight. Okay, so and it may very well be. I just don't know. I probably wouldn't know it if I saw it because I just don't think I have that problem. But I do have canes that die. It's just if the more blackberries you get, you're going to have some that just die. And they look good one day, and they don't look good the next day. I don't know what it might be, just aging out, or that cane just didn't have the right start on it. I don't know, but it happens. It happens all the time. Next question, if blackberries are in containers, do the roots get cold or frozen more easily? They live in Kansas, and the weather is a little colder up there. Well, your weather is a lot colder up there. Like I just mentioned a while ago, in 2021, I believe it was February 2021, we had what's called the Big Texas Freeze. We got into about -5 here, and for us, that was cold because it stayed and stayed for about a week. Maybe not -5 for a week, but we were below 10 for a good solid week. And I lost about half my canes. I lost about half my primocanes, Primark Freedom blackberries. They just did not do well in the cold. So a lot of it has to do with variety. But the canes themselves, I lost a bunch of those, 50% of them probably. But the roots, as far as I could tell, the roots in my containers, exposed roots. Now, we did have snow on top, snow around the base. But the container itself, the sides of the container were not, I didn't wrap them, didn't protect them at all. The new primocanes came up so well. As far as I could tell, there was no root damage But if you're worried about it, go ahead and wrap them. The next question says, I've noticed kiwis become a lot more sun tolerant if they're shielded from the wind. The full Texas sun sounds like it'd be a little bit too harsh. Maybe try planting them near a bush that shields them from midday sun and gives some wind cover. I gave up on kiwis. I was trying to grow the hardy kiwis, not the fuzzy ones, but the looks kind of like a grape. I tried for years. I don't know how many plants, but I tried a bunch. And they just did not make it through the Texas summers. I wish they had. If I really wanted to grow some kiwi. I have heard through comments, other people's comments on some of my kiwi videos, that they grew in a place where they had a big tree, and the late afternoon sun, 4, 5, 6 o'clock in the south, in Texas or wherever it was in the south, shaded them. And for that reason, they said they did real well. All my garden just about is out in full sun, and I just didn't have, I could have gone shade cloth, I guess, but I just didn't. But I gave up on kiwis. So this guy is saying that his are doing well near a bush that shields it from midday sun and gives some wind cover also. So wind, anytime you have a hot sun and wind, that's a blow dryer, and that's a blow dryer. And so it's tough on crops. It's tough on everything, but it was real tough on my kiwis, and I just gave up. All right, next question. Someone asked why I was adjusting my brush hog. If I've had it for 20 years, why am I just now adjusting it? Well, it's not my first time to adjust it, first time to video adjusting it, but also they get out of whack. They get wonky. Your tractor adjustments, your 3-point adjustments get a little wonky too. So, you're going to hit a stump, you're going to hit something. You might even bend one of those link arms. There's a lot of things that can go wrong, especially after 20 years of pulling the same brush hog. So it wasn't the first time I'd adjusted, just the first time I'd done it in a long time, and first time for sure that I'd videoed it. And it got wonky, and I learned a few things too, watching other people's videos and stuff. Learned a better way and learned how to adjust it a little bit better than what I thought I knew in the past. So I don't know. Hope that answers your question. I had a lot of questions and comments on my Instant Pot video, and 2 or 3 of them said instead of using water, when you add water to it to build the steam in it, because it's a pressure cooker, add apple juice and not water. Several people said that. This was good win ML. Forget the water, used apple juice instead. Several people said that. I kind of knew that, but I don't think I've ever done that. So anyway, very good suggestion. Appreciate it. We'll do it next time if I've got some on hand. Junker Junk asked, you said you were going to come back and do it over again. How long did you wait for the second time? Well, what they were talking about is when I hand pollinated some corn. And I told them, it'd been several years, and I don't exactly remember, but I would imagine it was every 2 or 3 days, or 2 or 3 days later, that you get the pollen from the tassels on top. Down in Texas, we call them tassels on top. You get the pollen out of that on a little brush, and you go in and pollinate the silks on the ears. Probably did it once and then did it again 2 or 3 days later, and I think that would be sufficient. Do it 2 or 3 times if you're so inclined. Not going to hurt. But help more than hurt, for sure. Someone else asked, how did my Orient pear do this year without the pollinator? I've got another pear tree, but it doesn't bloom at the same time. It's not supposed to be a pollinator for the Orient pear. Well, something around me pollinated that Orient pear. I had the best crop of pears this year in many, many years without a true pollinator for it. So I don't know whether maybe somebody's got a Bradford pear close, and a Bradford, even though it's not a fruiting pear, whether a Bradford, because everybody's got a Bradford pear just about. They like the ornamentals and not the fruit. But for whatever reason, I got a mess of pears. I mean, some big ones too. Some of the ones we used to grow that I remember 20 years ago. Big, big pears. Someone else asked, when do pears? Tambra asked. She comments on a lot of my videos, Miss Tambra. Asked, how do you know when Orient pears are ready? And you just have to, first of all, it's just going to be late July here in the South, in Texas. Late July, early August. They'll have just a little bit, as you squeeze them, just a tiny, it won't be just rock hard, just the tiniest bit of give to them, a little bit soft, not soft, but just a little bit, and they'll pull off when you start pulling off. It'll snap off at the pear. It'll snap off pretty easier. And sometimes we'll pick them, and knowing it's probably not ready, set them on the counter for a few days, 2 or 3 days, and they'll ripen in the house. So hopefully that helps you on that. So OLOLOLO9224 asks when the blackberries should be pruned. Zone 6B, should raspberry primal canes be pruned too? Never grown any raspberries, but is in 6B, for me, I don't think it would matter. As soon as as soon as your cane reaches the top wire of your trellis, assuming you have one, if you don't have a trellis, as soon as your cane reaches 3 feet, 4 feet, 5 feet max, because they get heavy, especially when they get a lot of fruit on them, and they will fall over and break that cane. So I don't let them get too tall. So I don't care what zone you're in. You want them to get up maybe 3, 4 feet tall. For me, 4 feet would be maximum, and then prune them, and then you start getting those laterals and prune those, because once a cane gets up, and I've seen canes get quarter size, but you get a cane that's loaded down with leaves and blackberries, and a big gust of wind comes along, it can bend that cane over and just kink it at the bottom, and 'cause that cane's probably done. So just height is not time, as far as I'm concerned. Even in 6B or wherever you are, I think would be determined on the height of the cane and not necessarily the time of year. So I'm just not familiar with 6B to tell you as far as time of year. But for sure, I would just prune as far as height, size of the plant. That's just and you want to control the plant too. You don't want to be driving by on your mower, and that plant's slapping your face because you forgot to prune it. So there's several reasons to prune. Production is the main reason, but also aesthetics and things like that too. It helps. Someone asked about planting blackberries in containers. Wouldn't it just been cheaper to just hammer down some flat metal flashing all the way around my blackberries to keep the gophers out, as well as keeping the roots from coming out and popping up a new plant where you don't want it? Well, no. Metal is expensive. My ground is so hard that I don't know how I would drive metal down in there. I don't even like to cut trenches. Have to do that with a tractor. And I think I've heard of people doing it. I've never seen anybody do it, but I would imagine you'd have to go down a foot, probably put some sheet metal down in the ground, a foot. It's probably not going to last. It's going to get out there and rust, and not going to last over 3 or 4 years. So for me, containers was the way to go. It keeps gophers out. It keeps weeds out. It keeps grass from encroaching. Let's put it that way. Birds are going to come mess in it and drop a weed seed. You're going to get some weeds. Wind blows in, birds come in. You're going to get some weed seeds, but for the most part, containers just don't have that much problem with weeds and grass. Again, grass seed, weed seed, all that's going to blow into a container. If you keep it really heavily mulched on top, you kind of beat that out too. So the idea of hammering down some metal in the ground to keep roots from going out, canes from popping up in the walkways, or to keep gophers from coming in, it sounds like a good idea. It really is. It really does. And I've heard of people doing it. I've never seen anybody do it. I've never watched anybody do it on YouTube, anything like that, but I have heard people say it's a good way to do it. In my ground, it's so hard, I didn't even well, yeah, I did think about it, I guess, but I didn't think about it very long, because it's just too dadgum hard to get something down into the ground here in East Texas where I am. So containers was the best way to go. Next year, I think all my blackberries are going to be in earth boxes. Pretty sure, because my containers, I've shown you, containers are starting to decay and get brittle and break, and I just don't think I'm going to leave them there for the winter. I think I'm going to, well, I don't know. I'll have to show you. But I think all of my blackberries next year are going to be in earth boxes, because I've got a bunch of them. Next question says, I'm curious to know why you added lime to your potting mix when blackberries prefer a slightly acidic pH. And they do. Blackberries like 6 to 6.5 pH, which is just a little acidic. It's not very acidic. most potting mix, if it's got very much peat in it, and if you're doing a wicking tub or an earth box, either one, you want to have quite a bit of peat in it. You want at least 50% of peat, because that peat is what wicks that moisture up, that water up into your growing chamber, into up to the roots. And peat has about 5.5 pH. So you're trying to raise the pH of your pot to accommodate the blackberries. And, 6.5, maybe I put too much in it. I've got that meter now. It's a 4-in-1 meter. I will link to that below the video. Love that little meter, 4-in-1 meter. Put it in there. It tells you what your pH is, moisture level is, sunlight is. It's an amazing little meter for just a few bucks. And so I'll put a link to that below. So be sure and check that out. I think a tape time machine and a pH meter, and you are off to the races. Those are my two favorite things in the garden. Maybe a hoary knife too. But the pH meter will tell you if I'm doing blackberries and the pH is 6.5, I'm probably not going to put any lime in it, because the 6.5 is about right for blackberries. But if I'm doing a tomato, maybe I will. Tomatoes and some things like, most things, a lot of things like 7. The difference between 6.5 and 7 is not that big a deal, I don't think. But that's why. It's because the peat is very low in pH. So I want to try to raise that up even on blackberries. Somebody asked if I'm growing any thornless blackberries. Heck no. I grew them for years. They were very prolific. Great crop. These were Prime Jim and Prime Jan. I don't think you can even find them anymore. It's those first two, I think, primocane varieties Arkansas came out with, University of Arkansas. And they were wonderful to grow blackberries. They were terrible to pick blackberries. I hate thorns. This is when I had my blackberry U-pick operation. And I was afraid somebody's going to bleed to death out there. I mean, it was just terrible. I will not I hate to say never, because I've had to eat never too many times, but I'm thinking I will never have any more thorned blackberries. Just don't want any more, even though they can be a very prolific variety. Someone asked about, help me with the floor cane. I've pruned them like I have shown, and they shot out super long and aggressive shoots. Never grown blackberries before, built the support system as I show there, but the long shoots are crisscrossing everywhere. Those are I assume you're talking about the laterals. You prune them at the top, and the laterals are going crazy. Go ahead and prune those laterals. He said they're floor canes, so prune those floor canes. I would prune them off at 16, 17, 18 inches, something like that. Then they're going to make canes also. So, there's plenty of times when I miss one. They're kind of in a jungle, and I just miss one. And I may have one 5, 6, 7, 8 feet long too. But as a general rule, I try to prune those laterals, even on primocanes. If it starts getting hot and I see they're not going to fruit on those terminal ends, I'll prune those primocanes off at about 18 inches, 2 feet, something like that. Don't let them get too long. And even now, I would come back and prune them, and they'll start making. You just want to manage them. Again, you don't want them out there while you're trying to mow. And if you've already let them get that long, you may want to leave them. But it's kind of your choice as to whether you want to leave them or go ahead and prune them. But I would prune back. I would try to be careful. I do try to be careful to prune them back at about 2 feet tops. Rip One Outdoors asked, he's a year late watching this pruning video, and asked, did the pruning help? Pruning always helps blackberries. They love, most any fruit tree, especially, probably most any tree, but especially a fruit tree or blackberries, they love to be pruned. I mean, they only grow so far and so long, and then they die anyway. So you're going to have to prune them out, the dead canes out anyway, but they love to be pruned. Apple trees, pear trees, peach trees, whatever, figs, they love to be pruned. It's part of nature's plan, pruning them off. Sometimes God prunes them with a storm, and sometimes if he don't, we need to go out there and prune them, because everything, when you prune, if you prune correctly, follow what I've shown you here. If you prune correctly, pruning always helps. And if you're not sure about pruning, if you'd rather have something you can look at and read, I've got a Blackberry book. It's a 15-step plan to Blackberry success. I'll have it linked below. If you look below where it says Texas Prepper 2 shop, or I think it says shop, that book is one of them that's listed there below. We've got a couple of new books that are down there also. In fact, the whole shop is fairly new. But look at that Blackberry book, inexpensive, and it will teach you just about everything you want to know about planting, fertilizing, pruning, storing, harvesting. Just about everything you want to know about blackberries is in that book. So I highly recommend it. Look below and you can find that little book. Someone says they like my idea of writing the instructions on the generator, on my generator video, my oil change video, where I write on the generator, change the oil every 50 hours, full synthetic, because I've changed 3 times and went synthetic after the 3rd time. Full synthetic, and then over the side over here I wrote 36 ounces. So I can measure out. I don't have to do dipsticks and this and that. 36 ounces and it's full. And that makes for a quick oil change. If you're in a grid down situation and your house is getting hot because you had to kill the generator, or something y'all doing without electricity because you had to kill the generator for an oil change, that just makes it so quick. You know what kind of oil to use. You know when it hits 50 hours, it's time, and you know you need 36 ounces of oil. You can have that pre-measured, ready to go. And so I think it's a good idea to write that on there too if you have a generator, no matter what kind of generator you have. Dan 0530.8 said their pond has been the worst it's been in 6 years, but everything flooded, so other seeds from my field and everything got in there. Flood, evidently a heavy rain washed a bunch of stuff down into his pond, and he's just having all sorts of problems. He's raking his algae and stuff out, which I've done. Not fun. I'll say that this year my pond has been the worst in a long time too. I put the blue dye in it. I put the pond bacteria in it, and I still got a big layer of the filamented algae on top of it. I didn't rake it off. I was going to, and I just got disgusted. Didn't rake it off. But what I did do is go buy some black pond dye. Put some blue pond dye in. I went and got some black pond dye. I may have overdone it. I got it pretty dark. But the algae, a hard rain kind of beat the algae down. The floating algae beat it down underwater. And then very little of it came back up. Now I've got kind of a scum on top of it right now, and I don't know exactly what that is. It may just be from my well water, because that particular well is not clean at all. But this has been a bad year for my pond too. I don't know whether I didn't start early enough with the pond dye and the pond bacteria, but for whatever reason, this has been a tough year for my pond also. But right now, it's just different. Never seen this before. Just kind of a scum, almost like in the spring when you get pollen, you get a layer of pollen on top. Kind of looks like that, except it's not. So I don't know what's going to come. There's no dead fish on it, so I don't know. To be continued on that. I don't know what's going on. But the last question, is really not a question, it's just a comment, is from Diane Latico 1769. Diane has commented on so many of my videos over the year, and she is just a wealth of information about just about anything and everything. She made a huge comment on my Instant Pot video. If you haven't read her comment on it and my discussion with her on it, because her comments are invaluable, if you go on that video, if you're interested in the Instant Pot, for recipes, things like that. She gives several recipes and just tips to run your Instant Pot well. And look at her comment. It's extended. She took a lot of time to do it. I appreciate that. Then I asked her some questions. She came back, and I think she answered a couple of questions a couple of times on that. So look at my Instant Pot video from last week, I think it was, would have been early August, depends on when you're watching this, early August, and look at Diane Latico 1769. Look at her comment on the Instant Pot. Very informative if you own or want to own an Instant Pot. So look for that video and check out that comment. She has made some wonderful comments on my videos in the past, and she's just a big help to this community. And I hope you read the comments on all. I hope you comment on all the videos, and I hope you read the comments on some of them too, because that's where you learn a lot. Is comments on not just my channel, but anybody's channel. Take the time to kind of peruse some of the comments that other people have made. You can learn a lot. I do that a lot. So. Anyway, that's the last one I'm going to have time for. It's getting kind of long in the tooth on this one. Probably the longest video I've ever done, with the exception of a couple of workshops that I did. But hope you've enjoyed this, that it's been helpful to you. Keep the questions coming. Maybe even make some questions under this one, and I'll try to answer them in the next one. Why am I doing this type of format? Because it's a lot cooler in my office than it is outside. It's getting close to 100 degrees out there. Not a lot growing right now, not a lot to show you. And I'd rather be sitting in here in the cool office answering your questions, because I like you and I like your questions, and I appreciate y'all. Be sure and like the video and subscribe if you haven't already. And we'll catch you on the next one, and it won't be too long probably. All right. We're gone.